So let me get this straight. You have a studio that makes films typically for the generation that doesn't get along with Generation Z. You market a film towards Generation Z and spend the entirety of the runtime satirically dismantling Generation Z. Well,
it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to my review of Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Sorry I'm about a week or more late on this one. I did not get a chance to check this out opening night, and being that school just started, I have not been able to go to the theater for a while. But I managed to check it out tonight, and this was one of those films that I chose to walk in completely blind. I did not read a synopsis, I did not watch a trailer. The only thing that I knew about this movie was that it was A24 and that Pete Davidson was in it. Not a whole lot of information. And I've seen a lot of different receptions to this movie. I've seen people really praise it as one of the more fun horror films of the year. I've seen people completely go at this movie's throat and say that they couldn't stand it. And so I had no idea what to expect. I had no expectations. I had no indication whatsoever of what end of that argument I might be landing on by the time this movie hits its credits. And unfortunately for me, this movie was possibly the most grating on my nerves film that I have seen since Black Christmas 2019. Don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing quality. I'm not saying that this is the worst film that I've seen since Black Christmas 2019, but I have not felt so physically annoyed by a film and its characters since that film. So getting into the positives, I do like the fact that very quickly you figure out this movie is a classic whodunit. It's marketed as a slasher, one of the reasons why I'm glad I did not bother to watch the trailer, and one of the reasons why I've stopped watching a lot of horror trailers, because if I had walked into this film expecting a slasher, I might be even more unkind to it. It's a classic whodunit in the vein of like Clue or almost even having some Very Bad Things element to it where things just continuously keep going wrong with this group of people. And so with that being said, there's a lot of flavor in this movie. There's a lot of different things, different inspiration that I saw that comes from films that I do appreciate. It does stick to a bit of a tried and true formula of a whodunit. It does stick to some of the tropes of that genre that, to me, are more fun than the ones that are not. And so with that in mind, I did enjoy the initial setup of this movie and what they were going for. And I'll also say that while it didn't necessarily get executed in the most entertaining way for me personally, I do commend and I do admire the fact that they were trying to be satirical with this, that they were trying to look at one generation specifically and how people of that generation tend to interact with each other, how they tend to get their information, the terminology that they just overuse like crazy. Those of us that spend a lot of time interacting on social media will recognize all of them instantly and cringe instantly. And so the attempts at satire here, the attempts at creativity, the drive to bring that generation in and hold the mirror up to them and show how ridiculous they can be sometimes, I can at least admire the balls. And finally, I think that pretty much all around, all of the performances were very good in this movie. It was absolutely intentional for these people to portray the caricatures and the characters that they were representing with their cast, and so the goal was achieved very much. I know what they were going for. I know that the response they were trying to elicit is somewhat the response that they got out of me, and that is 100% attributed to how well these actors and actresses portray what they were given on the page. Now moving on to the negatives. This is possibly the most insufferable cast of characters that I have sat 90 minutes with in years. And that's by design. It's not accidental. It's not like somebody failed along the way. This is a film that is trying to put a satirical spin on Generation Z, on 20-somethings, on rich, snobby kids, fill in the blank. It's trying to get all of these people together and show how they interact with each other and how they respond to this increasingly intense and paranoia-inducing situation, all the while kind of making them interact in a way that very much mirrors how people interact with each other on the internet, on social media, to the point where they're using the same terminology with each other. There's an entire scene in like the last 30 minutes of this film where all these characters are looking at each other with a suspicious eye and just using almost like a dictionary of all of these online social media terms that we see a lot of people overusing nowadays and just assigning to everything. Everything's got this new age term: gaslighting, triggering, facts are feelings, feelings are facts, and they just go around the table and just say every single thing that most of us people that live in the gray are sick of reading and seeing all over the internet every single day of our lives.
You're always gaslighting me. You fucking trigger me. You are so toxic. Relax, relax. You're silencing me.
And so aside from them being written to be rich, snobby, irresponsible kids that are doing drugs, that are just doing all the irresponsible things in the worst ways that they could possibly do in this situation, but they compound it by just reinforcing all of those personalities that we're all sick of seeing online. And they just shine a spotlight on it for most of the film. They want to put a spotlight on it and show how ridiculous it is, and show how inflammatory it is, and show how far removed from reality most of those conversations actually are.
Did you just fucking shoot me? I can't believe you're making this about you.
And there is a very fine line that you have to walk when you try to do that. There is a certain amount of finesse that you have to have in the writing and in the filmmaking if you're going to have characters that are by design these insufferable little shits to try to make your point, to try to get your message across. You can't go too far with it to where you sacrifice the entertainment value of the film. And for me, they did not quite find that balance. By about the 30-minute mark, I was already sick of these characters, and the satirical side of this film had not even really kicked in yet. Think of your favorite horror film, your favorite slasher film, and think of that one character in the cast that is just the most insufferable douchebag that says and does everything wrong and typically causes a hell of a lot more carnage and chaos to the other characters that would have happened if that person was not around. That's essentially the entire fucking cast of this film. And even before the satirical side of it starts, they're just the worst group of friends I have ever seen in a film. You watch them interact and party with each other, and it's like, how do these people stand each other? They seem like they all hate each other, like they would all throw each other to the lions for nothing. And you're forced to spend the entire film with this group of people, wondering who's going to make it out alive, who's going to interact with who the killer is, all of that shit, when you don't like or care about any of them. I also didn't find the movie to be certainly not scary, but not even tense throughout. It was more leaning into the comedic side of things for me, and I wasn't laughing all that often. So it was more of a movie that was trying to go for these tense situations, but it was such an obviously ridiculous concept and such an obvious play on the spoofy side of a whodunit film that I never really got invested enough in the characters or in the story to ever feel any form of tension. And that was all compounded by one of the most eye-roll inducing reveals that I've seen in recent memory. To the point where I felt like it was so obvious that it was probably going to go that direction that it can't be that easy. It's got to be something else, right? Nope, it was the most lazy and the most uninteresting way to wrap this film up and to give answers to the questions that I could have ever possibly imagined. And it's only there to reinforce the satirical side of the thing. It's only there to reinforce how silly and ridiculous this TikTok generation is, and at the expense of what could have been a saving grace for the film if it was something more exciting, more unexpected, or more interesting at the very least.
That all you got, mother?
So all in all, guys, I was not a fan of this film. This is one of my least favorite films that I have seen thus far this year. It's not without merit. There's certainly going to be an audience for this that's going to really like it and respect it, and there's going to be a lot of people like me that walk out going, what the fuck did I just spend my time with? Par for the course with A24. They have not changed. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed this, please click over here and check out my playlist of the rest of my 2022 new release reviews. And I'm also going to put my review of X, the much better A24 film from earlier this year. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss anything in the future. And of course, always remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.